Well, I'm so excited for today's episode. I'm pitching myself that we are in the Museum of Ice Cream, sponsored by a fortune cookie company, talking to higher education marketers. Today couldn't be more fun, and I have to give a big shout out to Open Fortune. Open Fortune flipped the fortune cookie on its head by giving brands an opportunity to reach consumers when they feast. At 47,000 restaurants nationwide, 99% of zip codes, the fortune cookies, really interesting way to reach consumers. And Open Fortune's been working with brands like Duolingo, Chime, ZipRecruiter, and colleges like Illinois State and San Jacinto College, as well as Northern Arizona. So shout out to everybody who's bought in, and shout out for them for buying into this podcast and letting us tell some awesome stories to people. So without further ado, let's get into it. Today's guest, PJ Perez, a marketing maven and storytelling virtuoso. PJ's academic roots were planted at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, where he graduated with a dual degree in journalism and sociology. He kickstarted his career as a contributing writer for Las Vegas Weekly before moving on to become a senior content developer at Vegas.com. PJ's career is characterized by a rich tapestry of roles, from managing editor of Racket Magazine and editor of her Daily Fiasco at Wench Media to public information coordinator at the Las Vegas Valley Water District for over 5 years. He's been a real estate columnist at Wendo Media, chief creative officer at Creation Forge Studios, and even a local editor at Vaco. His journey took him to Caesars Entertainment Corporation as an editor of digital content, and then to the Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas as manager of web and digital content. Notably, he has also dedicated around a decade as publisher and editor at Pop Goes the Icon. Transitioning to academia, PJ served as the digital media and marketing manager at Chapman University, and presently he juggles dual roles as a filmmaker at PKWY Media and the director of marketing at Chapman University. That was a mouthful. And how the fuck did you get those jobs?
Oh man, that's a good question. We should do a podcast about it.
We should. You want to do a podcast?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Sweet.
All right.
Man, I never, as you could tell by that great introduction, I never had a really clear pathway to becoming director of marketing in higher education. I was just a kid who was very entrepreneurial from a super young age. So like, quick story, when I was like 7 or 8 years old, my best friend and I started a landscaping company. Like
7 or 8?
I was like 7 or 8 years old, yeah. And we went to the like local landscaping equipment supply dealer up the street, and we're like, hey, what do we need to get this stuff going? And they gave us quotes for everything. And then
were they taking you seriously?
Yeah. And then my friend had the benefit of being like 3 years older, so he was like 10 or 11.
Damn.
So,
oh man.
We print up a bunch of flyers, distribute them around the neighborhood. And this was back in like the 80s, so I don't even know how we did any of this stuff. I mean, these must have been hand-drawn flyers.
Sure.
And my mom started getting phone calls because this was back before cell phones, so it was all going to the house number. And she's like, what's this calls I'm getting about you doing yard work and landscaping? I'm like, oh yeah, me and Michael, we're doing this landscaping thing. And she's like, no, you're not. And she's like, what, you were way in over your head. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she crushed my landscaping business before it could even get started.
Damn.
I could have been the landscaping maven of Northeast Philadelphia.
Man.
But no.
Quite the market.
Yeah, it worked out. But yeah, I just, when I was a young kid, I was like self-publishing my own comic books and stuff for years. And then once I got into high school, I started playing music and playing in bands, putting out my own music. Guitar, vocals, other things. I play a lot of instruments.
Very sweet, very sweet.
But because I was doing that, you got to promote your bands. So I learned how to like do graphic design, make flyers. I'd be at like the Kinko's late at night, like photocopying flyers and stuff. And I started making zines, which are basically like little homemade magazines that you self-publish, and kind of learned how to do marketing without realizing that it was marketing, because I was like a 17, 18-year-old kid. I had no idea what that was. And I didn't know much about college. No one in my family had gone to college. A lot of my friends went to college right after high school, and I was just like trying to be a rock star. So I was like, my school at the time was like learning how to put together like press kits and stuff to send out to like record companies and things, which is crazy because I had no idea what any of that stuff was. I just kind of like figured it out. And again, this was like the mid to late 90s, so we didn't have, like, the internet was a thing, but Google wasn't a thing yet, so it wasn't easy to just find this information.
Sure.
So I kind of just like figured it all out. And then I was like, well, I need a website for my band. So I learned how to do like HTML coding and like learned how to build websites.
So at that time was the dream like we're gonna go on tour and rock the world?
Oh yeah. Well, you know, I was sending demo tapes to record companies. I was like, you know, I quit my job. I'm like, I'm gonna focus on this full time. Lived off of my girlfriend, like, you know, real cool stuff to do when you're like 18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
And within like 3 months, I realized I was like, oh, this isn't going anywhere. And I'm running out of money and I need a job. So I actually got a job working at the Kinko's that I used to go and make my flyers and stuff at.
Did they give it some employee discounts?
Oh, I used the heck out of my employee
Yeah, there you go.
It's crazy. That was my primary reason for working there.
There you go.
So yeah, I worked there for years in my early 20s, and I was getting paid decent for a kid. You know, I kept moving up. I got promoted to assistant manager or whatever. But there were people who had worked there for like 20 years, and I was like, how are you working at like a Kinko's after 20 years? Don't you want to do anything with your life?
Mm-hmm.
And one day I got suspended for blowing up at a customer because they were being a jerk to one of my people. And I didn't have a car. My driver's license was suspended. I was kind of broke, and I was on the bus on my way home, and I was like, man, I need to do something different with my life. At the time, I had been freelance writing a little bit for a local like alternative weekly magazine, but I didn't think I could have like a career in that because I was like, I don't have a college degree. I can't be an editor. I can't do anything. So like literally that night, I went home and went to FAFSA.gov or whatever and looked up financial aid for college, and I applied to UNLV, and I started my bachelor's degree at 26.
Damn.
So
So
yeah.
what was it like going as a freshman into college at 26, and also in Vegas?
Here's the thing about Vegas. Once you get off the strip, it's really just kind of a bland suburban wasteland. It's different now, but Vegas is, if anyone who hasn't been off the strip in Vegas, like, it's just a lot of stucco houses and master plan communities, and some of it's real run down. I was just there recently, and I'm like, it's kind of dirty and grungy, and then you get to the really nice neighborhoods that are really far in the suburbs, and then everything in the middle is just kind of like crazy. But going to school there is interesting because the university area used to have this like really vibrant scene around it where like we had all these coffee shops and record stores, and you know, I did poetry and played music, and that's where I distributed my zines and all this stuff. And all that, by the time I went to college, went away because the strip had blown up and nightclubs were a thing now on the strip, and all the kids, instead of going to like the little divey bars around the university, they'd go to like all the clubs on the strip, because like the Hard Rock Hotel was literally 2 blocks from the end of the university. So like, why would you go anywhere else? You got like, they have a great music venue, you go see your bands there. So it was like a really interesting kind of thing that like, you have a university in the middle of Las Vegas that's literally like a mile from the strip. So it's a weird place to kind of be I guess a college kid and have that exposure.
Yeah, absolutely. So what did your course load look like, you know, in your mid 20s, late 20s?
So I was, like I said, I was already doing freelance writing. I was doing a lot of like music and entertainment writing. So I started in on a journalism degree because I'm like, well, this just makes sense. It's what I'm already doing. And I took all your basic journalism courses. I had an interviewing class that was really impactful to me. It's where I really opened up and learned how to like engage people and just talk to random people. Like they literally, like the assignment would be like, go out just on campus and just talk to some stranger, or go to the bus station and just talk to some people. And you've got to just learn how to like ask the right questions, and you kind of start formulating like, okay, what can I take out of this, and what's the most important like sound bites and stuff to pull out of that. Yeah, and I mean, I spread myself around. One of the things I really think is super important that helped me was like diversifying my like skill set and interests. So I just took all sorts of things. I took art classes, I took music classes, I did acting, I did screenwriting. I just did a bunch of stuff just to like, because I was there, just to get the full experience of it. Plus I was getting financial aid, so I was like, I'm just going to use the government's money.
There you go.
Now I'm paying for it.
That's the way she blows. I will say, so you seem like you used Las Vegas to your benefit while you were there. You weren't in like the stereotypical college town, right? When you decided to get a degree, like what was success for you? Like if you come out of that with a degree and X, like
I wanted to be an editor. I was freelancing and working for editors. So whether that was at a magazine or a newspaper or some other publication, that was like kind of the thing. And what's crazy is, I think you had mentioned Vegas.com in the intro. I was 2 years into my degree. I had seen this job they called it a content developer, but it was basically just like a digital writer. And I applied for this job, and again, I didn't have a college degree. I was 2 years into my bachelor's. But because I had all this different experience, I knew Photoshop, I knew how to build websites, I was a good writer, I had good clips. Like that put me up above the other candidates. So that was my first editorial.
Do you think that was the main like hard skill you had, like just creative writing, or?
I think it was the mix of the digital tools.
Yeah.
Especially at the time, because this was like 2004.
Yeah.
So like that stuff's been around for a little while, but not everybody was well versed in it. And most people who were writers, they weren't also designers and photographers and stuff like that. They didn't know like how to do that stuff.
Sure, and then you took a turn into, where did you go next? Because I know I have the roadmap I'm looking at, but
that's when I got my first full. I got hired to be managing editor of. So I I almost finished college. I actually got hired my senior year to be managing editor of a new like men's magazine that was launching in Vegas called Racket. It was sort of like, I don't know if anyone remembers Maxim. Is Maxim still around? Is that still a thing? So it was like Maxim-ish, but a little more culture focused. So like we would have like kind of not racy content, but like there'd be a lot of stuff on like strip clubs and like MMA and there'd be like the hot chick of the month or whatever. But we'd also talk about art and like subculture and skateboarding and stuff. So it was a very like interesting mix, and it was an opportunity to like at whatever, I think it was 29 at the time or something. Like I was like,
why not?
This is like awesome.
Yeah. Where did you see editorial going from there?
I didn't. I mean, I was kind of like, I really thought I just wanted to write. I was like, I want to be a writer. I had written for Rolling Stone at that point. I'd done a lot of like prominent freelancing for national publications and regional publications. But I was like, well, an editor must be the next logical step. And especially being in that role at Racket, it kind of opened up my eyes a little bit to the inner workings of publishing, because there's supposed to be a divide between advertising and editorial, and they blurred those lines a lot. And it taught me a lot of lessons about like journalistic ethics and what I felt good about and not good about.
So there was a lot of stuff that wasn't really ethical, or it was like paid advertisement that wasn't.
It was one of those things where like, hey, there'd be a contract for an ad, and it would be like, hey, this includes 1 page of editorial, and we didn't label it as advertorial or anything like that. So it was like it wasn't unethical. It was just a little like, hey, do this story on this guy because he gave us some credits to the club or whatever.
For sure. So what made you want to leave editorial?
Well, that and the magazine went under after 11 months.
Yeah,
because this was right at the start of the recession. So this was going into 2008 or 2007. It was right before the Great Recession. And I had a friend who worked at the Las Vegas Valley Water District. And they were. What
is that?
It's literally the people who provide the water to Las Vegas. But they run a 180-acre nature preserve. So they needed someone to basically run the digital marketing for that. But we didn't call it digital marketing back then. Like it was like website, email. We didn't even really do social media yet. I launched all their social media programs because this was, like I said, 2008. Like Twitter had just launched. Like literally, that was it. MySpace was still around. Facebook was still college only, I think, or was just barely starting to go public. So I had a friend that was there. She's like, hey, this job is available and it pays really well. And I got it, and that kind of started my path more to the marketing side.
Sure. And how did 2008 like kind of affect you or throw like a bone in everybody's role, like just like from a job perspective?
Sorry, ask the question again.
How did like 2008 and the recession really impact like being in the job force?
I was really lucky because going there to the water district, going there to the water district and to work for the Springs Preserve, which was the
People need water in the recession either way.
Well, that's the thing. Like it's basically like it's like a government job.
Sure.
So I had this really good paying job with solid benefits, and that had we had union protections and stuff, and my friends were getting laid off left and right, and the publication that I worked for, they had shut down everything, and not everything, but I mean like I said, my magazine went under. They were losing advertisers and stuff because the tourism on the strip dropped, and I got out at just the right time, and I stayed there for 5.5 years. Like I said, I built their social media policies. I built all their social media platforms. We started doing back then we were doing tweet ups, and so I was organizing events at our museums and stuff, and I really expanded what I was doing into a whole new world there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you had a few stops in between, but your journey ended up taking you to Caesars, and I'm curious, what made Vegas what about Vegas made it the right place to stay and call home, as well as that opportunity?
Vegas was really easy to live in. It's cheap. I had a really big network there. Having gone to high school and gone to college there, opportunities just presented themselves. It's a very small community that works in media and marketing there. So once you have a name established, and this is probably this way in any town, but Vegas in particular, it's not a small town numerically, but it's a small town in sort of the mentality. And it was just easy to do things. If I want to be hey, I'm gonna put on an art show in this museum, I just talk to the person who knows the person. They're like, cool, let's do that. And I'm like, oh yeah, can I throw a whole event and bring in food vendors and do this? And they're like, yeah, that's cool. You could do anything in Vegas, especially at the time, and you didn't really need there was no one saying no, you can't do that. You just be like, hey, can we do this thing? They'd be like, yeah, sure, that sounds cool.
Great.
Yeah.
No red tape.
Pretty much, yeah.
And what about Caesars was that's big deal over there.
Yeah.
What were they looking for you to do?
I was just mostly writing content for the blog. We had blogs for the casinos on the Strip, so I was doing reviews of Mariah Carey and Britney Spears and J-Lo, and talking to their music directors and interviewing chefs, and just doing more of the same kind of stuff that I did, on the magazine side or at Vegas.com. But I was also doing copywriting for their ads and copywriting for their social media and getting into SEO and all these, again, kind of diversifying the digital marketing skill set while also working on some of the traditional marketing stuff.
So since, you've been in the editorial side and advertising and digital content, right? And even up to date, how have you seen the game change, and where do you see it going with advertising?
I mean, it's everything has changed very rapidly, especially in the last 5 years. I mean, obviously, almost everything moved to digital about 10 years ago, but now with everybody being a content generator and everybody being kind of their own brand, or at least trying to be, you're competing for attention so much more. And the platforms that we use to do marketing and advertising, the social media platforms or the search platforms or whatever the case may be, they keep changing the way that they operate based on changing privacy laws or just different technologies. The fact that we can't target people who use iPhones because they opt out of being tracked, so now we can't hit them with targeted ads. It's a whole thing, and we have to be super nimble. We have to stay on top of everything, and it's tough. It's really tough. I was at the higher ed symposium today, and I was in an AI roundtable discussion, and people are talking about how the AI tools we're using now didn't exist 6 months ago, and now we all have to figure out how to use these tools which in theory will make our lives easier by making some of the more rote work automated, but then it also requires learning a whole new skill set.
Absolutely. And so how do you see that impacting your day-to-day?
I got to say, a heck of a lot more informed. I think I moved into the director of marketing role, honestly, at a perfect time, because prior to that, I was basically a one-person marketing team at the law school at Chapman, and I had to know so many things. I had to do all the things, and that's tough to keep up with. And honestly, there's only so much information my brain can keep at this point. So now it's nice. I have a have a 4-person digital marketing team, and they're all specialists, so they can do the information gathering and stay on top of the trends.
Yeah.
And I can just kind of more advise and provide strategic direction. And then I have 3 marketing strategists who work with the individual schools and departments and business units, and they become the experts in those areas, and they stay on top of the tools and everything, so that again I can help shape the strategy and help advise, but now I've got like multiple eyes and ears to keep the things going.
And with Chapman, right, what made that the right place for you? What about higher education, coming from your very unique, eclectic background? What attracted you to them, and also vice versa?
The Cosmopolitan was the last place I was at before Chapman, and I loved working for the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas. It was one of the coolest. If anyone's never been there, you go to Vegas, go to the Cosmopolitan. One of the coolest properties on the Strip. They got like a lot of art, amazing restaurants and bars. But at the end of the day, what you're marketing is to get people to spend money just to spend money, right? Like, yeah, you're getting a concert out of it, or you're getting like an hour of, slot play out of it or whatever, but you're also probably losing a lot of money. And I wanted to do something that felt like I was giving back. I was getting to a certain age where I was like, I kind of want to do something where I feel really good about it. And not that I didn't feel good about marketing a casino, but it's like anyone can do that. So when I moved to Orange County, I was almost exclusively looking at higher education roles, and Chapman I had actually, to be honest, never heard of. I was kind of familiar with the film school, which is probably the thing that we were most known for up until a few years ago. But I applied for the job, and I went over there, and I was like, oh, this campus is beautiful. The community seems really cool, and they liked me.
Yeah.
So I started at the law school initially there, and it's a fast-growing law school. It had only been around for about, I think, 25 years at the time, and there was a great opportunity to build. I was basically rebuilding their marketing program there. So I had the opportunity to basically shape it whatever way I thought was the best way, and I had really good support. It's a very supportive environment at Chapman. Like, it's supportive for the students, but it's also supportive for the staff. So it was cool to have that kind of freedom, but also that support there.
Absolutely. And I'm curious too, like with a lot of jobs when you go on LinkedIn or whatever it is, especially at the, senior director level, VP level, like they always are like, we need experience in not just marketing, right? But in collegiate marketing or in fintech, right? Obviously they were open to it because you didn't have any higher ed experience, but did they see that as a positive that you didn't?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. That was the thing, that like they wanted an outside perspective. And it was a relatively new administration at the law school at the time, so I think that they were trying to bring fresh people and fresh ideas in. Even though I didn't formally have higher ed experience, I had worked with nonprofits, and I worked in higher ed when I was in college because I was the editor of the newspaper there, so I at least knew how to navigate that world. But I guess I must have exhibited some sort of passion for it in my cover letter, and I do. And the great thing about marketing higher ed is that what you're selling is something that literally changes people's lives. It enables them it gives them the platform to do whatever they want, whatever they dream of, right? Our previous tagline at Chapman was actually anything imaginable, which seems appropriate even though it's a little vague. Yeah, I mean, that's what you're doing. You're enabling people to kind of actually attain their dreams.
And how old is Chapman as a university?
Technically, someone help me out here.
1861.
Okay,
Yeah.
so 1861. The brand was founded in 1861. You're inheriting something that is over 150 years old, right? With a brand that is 150 years old. How do you balance like doing new creative stuff as well as like making sure that you're sticking to your roots of the people who, have built this thing?
Yeah, well, the interesting thing about Chapman is that it didn't start as Chapman University. It went through quite the transformation over the years, and it moved locations. It was originally up in, I think, Central and Northern California, and then moved to the Los Angeles area, and then eventually moved to Orange County, where we've been for 100 years now or whatever. But there's a tradition there. So it was one of the first universities that didn't discriminate, basically, that was open to all, and that was rare back in the 1860s. Like, we're talking, this is like Civil War era. So that inclusivity is a tradition that dates back 150 plus years, and that kind of base of opportunity for anybody is still an essential part of Chapman. So like, even though the Chapman University brand now is a whole kind of different thing, there's a through line going all the way back. So the nice thing is it's undergone such a transformation in the last 25 years. It's grown rapidly. It went from being a college back prior to the 1990s to being a university. We went from being a regionally ranked one to a nationally ranked one. Like, this all happened just in the last like 10 years. Yeah. So it's really almost an entirely new university to market in a way. And we just did a recent refresh on our branding about 6 months ago, that we just launched a new brand that we developed in-house.
And how's that been going?
It's great. The thing is, the previous brand was developed with an outside agency, and they did great work, and it worked for about 5 years. And then when it came time to refresh, we did it all in-house. So we did the research. It was all based on research. We did it based on getting the feedback from the campus community. So we literally surveyed alumni and students and faculty and staff and board members and whoever, and got the buy-in on it, so that when we finally came down to like the new tagline and the new look and the new feel, everything was designed to be reflective of what Chapman actually means to its constituents.
Absolutely. No, that's awesome and cool that you brought it in-house, and it feels like, you guys built it. Like, that wasn't just inherited, right? How you brought up earlier on bringing it all the way back to, the first question I asked you, like, you're very entrepreneurial from your jump, but also your jobs and freelancing and like big thinking, dreaming as a musician. How do you bring your entrepreneurial spirit into what you're doing at Chapman?
In higher education, there can be a lack of speed on moving on new things. We're lucky because we're a private university. We don't have to we can move a little quicker than like big
Sure.
public universities. But I have a boss and a team who we don't outright dismiss ideas. Like, we know that we can't do all the things we want to do, but we try to foster an environment where people feel comfortable coming up with new ideas and throwing things out there. Even if we know that it's not going to fly, maybe it's something that we'll be able to do 2 years from now. Maybe
Sure.
it'll be something we can do when the budgets come up. Me personally, I don't believe in we just do this thing because we've always done it. Anytime someone's like, hey, this is our process, I'm like, cool, who made the process? Well, we did. Okay, can we improve it?
Yeah.
We can drive the direction of this any way we want. It might take a little while to make those changes, but we have to be open to innovating and making those changes so that we can all do a better job, be better marketers, be better communicators.
Absolutely. And so we've talked about a lot of you as, in the workforce, in your career, but talk to me a little bit more about like what you're proud of on your personal life side, and some, projects you might be doing for fun.
It doesn't feel like I do anything for fun. It feels like I do everything for like extra work. So I do filmmaking outside of Chapman. I've done filmmaking inside of Chapman for brand stuff, but I released a documentary film about 3 years ago.
Nice.
Called Parkway of Broken Dreams. It was actually about that college scene that I was talking about earlier around the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and it did okay. Won a couple of film festival awards and got picked up for national distribution by public television stations, and so that gave me enough cred and experience to start work on another feature-length documentary that I'm just starting work on.
Nice.
We just did a little crowdfunding campaign and raised.
Could we get a hint what it's about?
Yeah. It's actually it's a little dark. It's about the murders of two anti-racist skinheads by racist skinheads in the desert outside Las Vegas in the 1990s.
Oh wow!
So another Vegas-based thing, but it had a really strong impact on the city and the culture. That one of the guys who was killed was a musician and poet and very popular, and when they basically kind of became martyrs. So it sort of explores the impact of that and what led up to it, and how it kind of ties to some of the tensions that are going on, with kind of those issues today.
Very cool. Well, that's the probably best way to end this podcast. No, but honestly, it is. I'd love to hear, love hearing about everything that you're saying and your career, and not only in the personal life. And that's cool that you've done those documentaries, and you definitely send them over to me.
Yeah.
But we're not done yet. We got the lightning round, and then we'll wrap up. Well, today's made possible by Open Fortune. You saw the ad read in the beginning, but just a fun fact about Open Fortune, part of my job, I have to Google fortune cookies sometimes and see what's going on. And there was actually a college student who got in the news yesterday, but they were a D1 volleyball player, and they were deciding whether to stay in state at Idaho State or go to somewhere in Virginia to play volleyball. And they got a fortune cookie that said you don't have to go far to succeed. So they ended up staying at Idaho State, or going to Idaho State and committing there. So it's kind of cool, just like that happened. But big shout out to Open Fortune for making today possible. All right, so follow my lead. You crack open one of these. See if it relates to what we were talking about. All right. What'd you get?
Cherish each lesson, for it is a stepping stone to success.
There you go. And who got on the back?
Go back in time and buy Apple stock in 1998. No,
Yeah.
sorry. It says create your legacy, Illinois State University.
Damn, you got a competitor.
What?
Yeah.
No.
Boo. No, shout out. Who are they, the Redbirds? Cardinals?
Yeah.
Yeah. Your mind says your creativity thrives at night, and it's Duolingo.
At night?
It's just not true though. I'm like a morning person, and I get super sleepy. But it's all good. So, okay, person you'd most want to sit down to dinner with, dead or alive?
Oh my God. Prince.
Favorite city in the world?
What?
Favorite city in the world?
Oh, you think this would be easier? Home, Orange, California.
There you go. Is it okay to sleep with socks on?
No.
Hard no. Favorite rom-com?
Oh, oh my God. Well, it's not really a rom-com. I pass.
In 40 years, what will people be nostalgic for?
Paper and pen.
What's the worst advice you've ever been given?
Do this podcast. No, I'm kidding. Joke.
That was a good one though. I could take the heat. I like the burn.
Sorry. I can't.
You have no bad advice?
I mean, I've probably been given bad advice. That's the problem with lightning rounds. I'm on the spot.
There you go. All right, we'll keep it going.
Yeah.
We'll take 2 passes. You got to keep answering.
Yeah,
You have no more passes.
Okay.
In one sentence, how would you sum up the internet?
Scary and inspiring.
Favorite Chapman grad?
Oh, I'm gonna have to pick one. I want to say somebody on my team, but I don't know, Justin Simeon.
And one thing people don't understand about working in higher ed is blank.
It's actually pretty fun.
There you go. What about it so fun?
You get to actually see the direct impact of what you're marketing, like literally in front of you. You see the kids on campus and you talk to them and they're having like just the greatest experience, and you're like, oh yeah, I helped get you there.
Yeah, and the people you work with. Come on, give them a shout out. And in 10 years, where can we catch PJ Perez?
Hopefully still alive.
Yep, that's a good answer.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, PJ, we'll see you in 10 years alive from now, and we're going to have to record another podcast, and I'm excited to see your documentary and to see the awards that it wins. But thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it,
man. Cool.